Hello, Molly here. Welcome to the Say It Skillfully podcast, hosting leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, elite athletes, and professionals like you who open up about defining moments, what's been hard, and what they've learned in finding their true north and succeeding on their terms. So often, what we offer the world is what we need most ourselves. And that's certainly true for my guest today, whose early life as an Israeli American orphan compelled him to a life creating spaces where people truly connect. Today, he's at the helm of Assemble Hospitality, reimagining how teams come together and grow. Before that, he founded Social Tables, which transformed how the events industry approaches gathering. His story, though, is beyond entrepreneurship. It's about identity, resilience, and turning personal loss into purpose. So I'm very humbled to be joined by the amazing Dan Berger, spelled Dan, by the way. Don, welcome to Say It Skillfully.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's really a treat for you to join me. And I have to, listeners need to know that this is the first time Don and I are meeting, and it was through a very, very dear friend of ours, Luke Larkin. So shout out to Luke for having our paths cross in life.
Shout out Luke.
Yeah, and you're in Boise, is that right?
Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho, another place that I really is very near and dear to me. So I understand this is going to be quite a journey, and so I want listeners to listen with open hearts and minds. And Don, I'm going to let you take it away and let us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Again, thanks for having me. As I like to think about my life in three very early traumas, and I don't use the word traumas lightly because everybody's got traumas. Even the rich kids who grew up riding horses and playing polo, they have traumas too. So everybody's got traumas. Everybody's traumas are at a maximum because that's what they experience. They don't know anything else. But my traumas were related to belonging. And belonging for me started when I experienced loss when I was in the womb of my biological mother. And the reason for that is because when when a decision is made to give out your baby for adoption, even before they're born, there is a signal sent biochemically to the baby that they don't belong in your body, that they won't belong in your life. So that was belonging trauma number one in utero. And then I was born. I was adopted when I was 5 days old, and then I moved to a family with my mom and my adoptive dad. And when I was two, my dad abandoned us, so it was just me and my mom, and that was belonging trauma number two. And then at the age of 9, we moved to the United States. And even though I don't have an accent, at least I don't think I do. Some of my friends say I had an accent when I came here, but I don't believe that. And I came here from Israel, and I have since then, for the last uh, 35 years, have been negotiating my identity, and that's belonging trauma number three, immigration. So for all those reasons, I kind of um, have gotten to a place where I always question my identity. To what you said, do I belong here? Why am I broken? I feel worthless, and so on and so forth. Now that drive only served me so far. It served me through 40 years of getting to a business, getting a successful outcome. But then when there was silence, the noise was deafening, and I realized that I got to do some work. Um, I was raised by two social workers, so I was like I wasn't scared of the work, but it was almost kind of like the cobbler's kids had no shoes.
Yeah.
So they really didn't do much to help me. And kind of that's the story that I just shared is the reason I think why I'm here and the realizations I had.
That's a lot, and not to bring you back to painful times, but I would appreciate hearing as a child, in your 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, what do you remember about living in Israel?
Well, I feel like the word Israel, and I just hear it these days. I'm just like, they're gonna judge me. Um, and I mean, I'm not going to bring any kind of Israeli Palestinian issues to this conversation. Um, but I grew up in a peaceful Israel. I grew up, um, uh, at a time when it was quiet. Uh,
Mm.
During the first Gulf War, when I was visiting my grandparents, they had gas masks on their kitchen table waiting for um, Saddam Hussein to drop chemical weapons on Israel at any time. But it was a peaceful time for me. It was peaceful not just in the sense of the the environment, but also peaceful in the sense that I really shined as a kid. I had, friends. I was kind of like I was the leader of the social circle. We had a tree house where all my friends came and we hung out. And that's when I realized I love bringing people together because I never had it. So I was like, let me just go ahead and like do it for other people. And that's what I remember, which is why moving to the United States or anywhere else for that matter, wherever I ended up, was jarring. Um, I would later, by the way, go on to meet my biological mom and siblings. I have four, I learned. And I realized I'd be in jail if I wasn't adopted. Like these people, as much as have grown to love them, were really products of their environment, like all of us are. So moving to the US was a huge gift. But I think about it kind of like that machine where it's like, and then the claw arm goes down and picks up like a random thing and drops it back. And that to me, I was just like basically picked up from this like sea of happiness and dropped into like this the unknown.
So when you were in Israel convening, your father figure, so your father left, and I'm just wondering who stepped in, or how did you get some, male parenting?
I didn't. Um, I mean, my mom was the breadwinner, so from that like traditionally masculine role, she did that. She wore it very proudly. I'm working two jobs. I'm commuting an hour. This is all to provide for you, and so on and so forth. So, I, I mean, I also don't think at the time we were like, oh, who's providing what role. That being said, not having a father figure until my stepdad came in the picture, who was 20 years my mom's senior, so he was like too old to like do stuff with. But I didn't have like a dad to like teach me how to drive. I didn't have like the traditional stuff, throw a ball, like, or like, just like talk about girls or whatever. Like I didn't have that.
Mhm.
So I don't there's obviously research that, if people might listen, might know the ACE score, which is basically your score of traumas. And, there's correlation between the higher the score, the more likely you are to end up in jail or, get an STD and all this stuff. So I'm a 4 out of 10 on the ACE, which is quite high. And part of the reason is because I didn't have a dad
Yeah.
or I didn't grow up
So,
in a nuclear family.
yeah. Did you, are you friends with the kids that you were with back in Israel?
Oh
Did you
yeah.
keep in
To
touch
this
with
day,
them?
we're in a WhatsApp group.
Oh, that's
I
great.
just I was diagnosed bipolar six like not 8 months ago, and at like 43, and
Wow.
yeah, wild. And I learned that my longest like a running friend or whatever, is also bipolar. He's my kindergarten friend. So and that's because we're still in touch and we're still in this friends group. We speak in Hebrew.
Yeah.
They make fun of my Hebrew because it's obviously deteriorated over the past 35 years. But yeah, still homies.
So, will you share a bit for us who aren't really as knowledgeable about bipolar, and then how does that affect you, and how do you manage it? I guess.
Yeah. So there's two ways I manage it: one without medication and one with medication. So let me focus on without medication. Uh, so the first thing is, like I said, cobbler's kids have no shoes. My mom didn't set like you. Let me backtrack. So adoption creates a primal wound. A primal wound is the result of being angry by your biological parents and taking it out on your adoptive parents. And that trauma deserves help. And my mom, bless her heart, she is exceptionally resilient, exceptionally intelligent. My mom is the top 10 producer of social work academic journal articles in 2024, and she's 78. So she is a leader in post traumatic growth and all the stuff. The irony is, hello, what about where's my PTG? That's the irony of it all. So, um, you know, bipolar, there's two type, one and two. I'm one. Basically, it's a mood disorder where you swing between hyper arousal states and hypo-arousal states. So if you imagine everybody's got this baseline where you have like, slight kind of deviations, I'm like wildly deviating between the two. Very severe case of bipolar means you don't sleep for a few days. I did not have that, but I'd like temper explosions. I think it contributed to the addiction I've I was living in for, decades, which I'm in recovery for now. So, yeah, it's just a mood disorder that really uh, challenges your ability to um, control yourself.
And were you someone when they were like, "Hey, here's some medicine"? Because I had a one friend who had this, and it was very hard for her brother to stick with the meds because they really did make a difference. I'm curious how you are with
Oh yeah,
your meds.
I'm Pac-Man. You know, give it to me. I'll take whatever. Because one of the things I realized, Molly, is that like a lot of folks, look, there's two schools of thought. There's like the Bad Therapy, which is a book that just came out, which is like about we're over medicating the kids. And they almost say that now it's like, ooh, what drugs are you on? Oh, you're not on drugs? Whoa, you're lame. There's like exactly, it's kind of one-upping on medication. But the reality is we have some fucked up people in this country as a result, or this world as a result of like all the stuff I don't talk about, social media, addiction and so on and so forth. So um yes, I think that I have no a lot of people have biochemical imbalances, present company included, and I I like you need a baseline, and if your baseline is screwed up, then you got to address the baseline. And Jonathan Haidt talks about this in the happiness hypothesis. There are only a few ways to address negative dispositions: meditation, cognitive behavior therapy, psychotropics, um, and yeah, those are the three. And I would add psychedelics to that as well. But I actually talked to him about it. He said I would add psychedelics if I was writing the book today. So
Yeah.
that's it. So I have biochemical imbalance and I need psychotropics.
So as a kid navigating this, and your mom's super busy, I'm really impressed that you kind of stay the course. And, or maybe you did careen off. So just take, 9 years old as a kid, you sound like you're pretty happy and adjusted given all that. And then they plunk up and you're in America. So just talk about, do you remember the transition? Like, were you bitter? Were you happy? What was it like?
So I'm gonna yes, so I get to America and mm, no, I hate my mom for moving me here. In fact, you know, I came here like starting almost adolescence, so that like 10x'd my acting out.
Totally.
I would say awful things to my mom that I regret to this day. Like I even said like you're not my mom and just awful things like that. Started calling her by her first name, like to kind of distance herself from being stupid adolescent stuff. But I was in pain. I was in pain, and nobody saw me. Um, but I came here and I didn't speak a word of English. And I went to the school, and it was a small school, 24 kids in a grade. And I remember the first week they were doing choir tryouts, and I was one of only two children who didn't make choir in fourth grade, and it was me and Eugene Unger from the Soviet Union, and we would sit in our classroom on Friday afternoons as the kids were harmonizing down the hall. Um, that would not happen today given the over inclusion we have and like the trophy culture. um but yeah, like, so that was like a bit, I was like, whoa, I really felt othered for the first time in this fourth grade. But that being said, I got there and I saw there was like a class leader, and in the beginning I was like, ooh, what am I going to do? But then I was having a birthday party because I came in August and this was November, my birthday, and I was like, I'm having a birthday party, I should invite Jay Zaretsky. And I invited him, and we became best friends for many, many years. So I extended that olive branch at a young kid, and it paid off.
Yeah. How did you, because there's a lot, I can tell you're studied, right? You've been researching, studying. And so talk about the journey of academically coming up to speed on what's going on for me. I mean, that's also, you have to be curious and intellectually stimulated to even want to do it.
Well, I like, I'm like I'm a man of science, not a man. Oh, sorry, I used to be a man of science. Now I'm a man of science and faith, but I was used to be a man of science. Um, and I guess I still, sorry, I like both. um, and if I'm going to make claims, then I need to be able to back them up. If I just tell you
Mhm.
my intuition is telling me that I need, like, that sounds great, but a lot of people who are especially at a lower consciousness level don't even understand intuition and like why that's valid. They don't understand the concept that um, that Jack Cornfield talks about in The Wise Heart, that intuition is part of this global, universal storehouse of knowledge. So we're tapping into that, but that's like above most people's understanding. So I've always felt like I needed to back up what I say, which is also related to my imposter syndrome. If I'm feeling like an imposter, which is what coaches do all the time, if I'm feeling like an imposter, I need the evidence, I need the backup, I need the bench to come into the game and help me out. So part of it is imposter syndrome. Part of it is like, working with my brain. Part of it is my upbringing. I cite my mom's work. I mean, academia is all I learned from my mom. Um, and that's why I cared about those things. And the journey really, it started in school, like learning how to like use the Chicago APA, whatever style of Chicago APA style of,
Right.
and this is pre AI. So you have to source your stuff. um, and you would get dinged if you didn't source. So I'm not like I was a good student, but I always sourced my stuff. And I think it's valuable to help people understand where you came up with the stuff. So when I wrote my book, I cited over 120 professional papers or books. And I had to do all that reading. And I did it during my kind of sabbatical between my first company and my second company.
Yeah. Okay, so take us back. You're in America, you're angry, you're figuring it out, and then you get into school and you decide. I mean, I am curious, did you have role models starting companies? Like, where did you go to school? I mean, just take us
I'm
through what that was like.
not one of those guys who'll be like, I knew I was an entrepreneur when I had my lemonade stand. Okay, I'm not one of those guys. I am, to me, I like to say controversial shit sometimes. Like the other day, I said that entrepreneurs are only people who exit their companies. I got a lot of shit for that. Um, but so for me, entrepreneurs, um, they don't plan on it. You can't plan to be an entrepreneur. You can't plan on having a spiritual awakening. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't sound like I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just know that I marched on the beat of my own drum. And
Mhm.
that's shown up in many, many different times in my life when I don't like, I'm not a joiner, I'm a starter. So created the treehouse. I created my birthday party. I love the clubhouses. I think conscious exclusivity is a very important, gathering tool, because as I love to say, if everybody belongs, nobody belongs. So I, that being said, the story is as follows. Um, I'm a product of public schools up until grad school. I went to Georgetown to get my MBA. But prior to that, I was at Hunter College in New York City, where tuition is $3,000 a semester, and majoring in political science and doing the 5-year program because I was working full time while I was going to school. So I'm middle class kid, public schools, like no BS. So when I graduated B school, it was 2010. I was like a Great Recession kid, and yeah, I kind of joined a Booz Allen Hamilton, which was like this like government consulting firm, and I was like, God, this sucks. And I was commuting from like DC to Dulles via like bus and train and like you know like scooter. I was like, what am I doing? I'm commuting to sit in near the airport at a random workstation, waiting for work to land from the ceiling. That's just not what I'm. This is not me. So I started working nights and weekends on a small project. I always kept a list of project ideas I had, and I consider Booz Allen Hamilton as my first angel investor since I completely forged my timesheets. And I got fired 6 months later, and it was great because I was able to start my company.
Okay, before we get to that, I just have to ask. You're going through the school thing. Okay, you're going through the motions. No, really, what is going on in your brain? Like, I'm in America. I should be grateful I'm here. Blah blah. Like, seriously, what were classmates doing? I mean, I'm wondering what was going on. Were you still angry with the world at that point? What were you like?
Molly, I don't know if I knew that I was angry.
Mm.
Knowing you're angry, first of all, anger is a result of like probably sadness, which is a result of fear. So I was not able to kind of peel the onion to like really understand what's going on. So I was just like, I'm an angry kid, and that's how I showed up. Like it was part of, like, I didn't think like, I should be, I should be angry. It was just me, and I really didn't have the lexicon and the workflow and the framework to understand feelings. Um, Nowadays parents have like feelings list on the fridge. um, but yeah, I
Totally.
didn't really have that. So for me, like I was just, I was resentful. To this day, I'm very resentful. I'm really working hard on letting all those things go. Very, very hard. Um, but yeah, I mean, what was going on in my brain? I mean, yeah, I think it was just I really am struggling to answer that question. What was going on in
That's
my
okay.
brain? I don't know. I mean, yeah, just I was really angry in my teenage years, and you know what? I'll tell you, I know the answer. I developed my addiction in my 20s because of my worthlessness and brokenness. I became a love addict, and what that means is I just essentially met as many women as I could and manipulated them to kind of charm my way into like catching feelings and falling for me. And then I would leave them before when I felt like they were getting too close.
Mm.
And that love addiction eventually became sex addiction, and eventually became pornography addiction. Um, so yeah, I was busy manipulating people um, to make me feel better. And when I was not feeding my addiction, I was lost. And the company, in a way, that was part of my way of taking on a compulsion on building something. And a lot of former employees have a lot of anger towards me because of the way I drove them, the way how hard I drove them. In fact, just today I got an email from a former, and by the way, I have a ton of former employees and former teammates who are like, "Thank you so much. This was the best experience." But I have a lot of resentful people, especially if they were underperformers. One guy emailed me today, and he's like, "Just want you to know, working with you is demoralizing." And I was like, I just responded and said, "I'm sorry." Um, you know, so yeah, I think my compulsion really drove me. My compulsion, as a result of my brokenness, drove me to lead the life that I led.
Yeah. So, Don, the idea of when you kind of realize that you did something, and it's part of who you are, so you did it, and then you own it, and you feel sorry for it. But some people can't get over that. They kind of let that drag them down. That they might create a story of like I am bad or whatever. Do you feel like how did you how did you give yourself permission to say, hey, that you know wish I didn't do it, but I did, but I'm going to be better for it and move forward? Because I think this is a message for all people listening, right?
Well, first of all, my favorite kind of saying is, if everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong. So I'm comforted by that mantra. I will say the 12 steps, a key part of it is, admitting your life is unmanageable, um, kind of giving up those defects to kind of surrendering and giving up those defects to a higher power. And, as cheesy as it is, I mean, spirituality is a big piece of it.
Mhm.
I'm not thinking it's not like the end all be all, but it's certainly a big piece of it, I believe. Especially if you're doing 12 step. I mean, 12 step is for the spiritually bankrupt. So that's one thing, um, or two things. The another thing I think is, you know, learning about myself. And I already said, like, do the work, understand yourself, and all that. Like that's exactly what you ever needs to do. I mean, in Judaism, my faith, um, the point of living is to uh, uh, let the soul become better. That's your job, is to take the soul. The body is our vessel, and to leave this world with the soul being better. So that's an example of just kind of doing the work and the spiritual kind of connecting. And that's kind of what I did. And for me, it always came down to belonging. How do I belong? How do I feel like I belong? How do I create spaces where people belong? And I realized that in order for me to feel a sense of belonging, I need to come to terms with all this stuff.
So the company itself was a bit of therapy for you. And just
Therapy
talk
for
to us
me,
about.
terrible for everybody else.
terrible for everybody else, and it's part of the journey. So just talk to us. How did you, I mean, sure, you went to business school, you had a little bit of training, and so I'm curious who supported you? How did you, grow a company? And I have to say, I'm really hearing how in touch you are. You've done a lot of work to study and learn, and sometimes that can also be a real liability because you know too much. And so I'm just wondering if you ever give yourself a chance to just let it go, you know what I mean? And not necessarily understand it all.
I'll get to that. It's a great question. It's like this intellectual masturbation that I got this exercise that I go through. Um, and it's fucking annoying because I'm like, oh, you should listen to this guy. Yeah, it's like it's true. I think the first thing, it's like not arrogance. It's truly from a place of like genuine service that I want to provide.
Mhm.
But we'll get to that in a second. So your first question is around like B school and the company and stuff. So basically, I was going. So as an immigrant, I had a lot of social anxiety, and also as a result of all the traumas I shared. So I was going to a wedding one time in 2008, and I got the invitation. It was the first American wedding. In Israel, everybody's like wearing T-shirts and whatever, but it was the first American wedding, and I was going to be seated at a table with like French service, and I was like so nervous. I'm like, I'm going alone. Who am I gonna talk to at my table? This was on my mind. So I said, well, what if there was a way for me to see the profiles of people at my table, LinkedIn or Facebook, so I can know what they look like and maybe even meet a cute girl because a lot of people meet at weddings. So I thought, well, why not social tables? You know, some create a social seating chart and publish it to the guests. And that was the idea. '08, and then 2010 I started working on it. Thank you, Booz Allen. And but the company, what I realized was that I was solving a belonging crisis that I had for myself. And that's why I constantly created stuff because I wanted to belong, but I also wanted to be unique. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to belong in your thing. I'm going to belong in my thing. And I want to set the rules. And so that's the beauty of like starting a company is you can create that, especially with a culture that we had. We were, I mean, we were doing diversity reports in 2016. Like we were ahead of so much. Um, and we created a really special place. The shoes behind me are like we're you know anyway, like those are just the artifacts that we have from this kind of incredible culture. So anyway, um, the company was a solution to my belonging problem, really, and it was a way to divert my compulsion, at least hit the pause button and be compulsively a workaholic. Um, So that's the answer to your first question. The answer to your second question is this liability around being well learned. Um, I don't know, man. Like I feel, yeah, I gotta go back to what I said before. Like I have imposter syndrome, and I feel like I just need to always explain myself and stuff. And um, yeah, I kind of, when I speak to you, for example, and I'm like citing this book or citing that book, I hope that people who listen, will, I don't care if they buy my book or not. I want them to go pick up this other stuff, and maybe that can help them. So it's truly from a place of kindness and service. Well, yes, it's also from a place of like showing off, but it's also from a place of like sharing. Because if I could do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. This imposter syndrome. So do you label yourself like you feel like you really do have imposter syndrome still? Do you feel like you're always going to have it? What's your relationship with that?
Well, I think it is like a life diagnosis. Because even if like imposter is usually related to like work. Like I was like I felt like I was a CEO and I like I'm a CEO, but like am I CEO? Like I don't have back then I didn't have any gray hair. I'm like, am I a CEO? Like I'm 35. Am I a CEO? Like I have 100 employees. Like me? Um, like I'm speaking in front of audiences. They care? Like, it's always that. It's always that. Um, but then it carries on from professional to personal. And it's like I moved to Idaho and I'm like, am I an Idahoan? Like, do I really need a truck? Like, you know, do I dress kind of more like different? Because I don't care about fashion as much. So it's like, yeah, I don't like, so I think it's always with you. I mean, even with my daughter, who's 4 months old now, I'm like, me, a dad? Am I playing one on TV?
Okay, take us from, I would say, a bit of the barbarians of the gate of social tables. You build this company, you're like, are you just kind of like going through the motions? Well, I'm supposed to sell it. This is what everyone does when they do that. And you mentioned a little bit hitting the wall, and finding perhaps this next venture is something that maybe you're not chasing so much.
So if I understand your question, um, how did I jump from the current venture to the next venture? What?
Well, also, I'm just curious a little bit of the drama of, when you work that hard and, you're slave driving people and then you get to a point where you can sell it. There's a lot, and a lot of people, that's a breaking point. That whole activity is a breaking point. And I don't know for you if it was pretty easy to sell, wasn't easy to sell. I'm just curious because that's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, I don't mean to dismiss what you're saying. I know it's a big deal. Um, if I'm a slave driver, there's nobody who I drive harder than myself. That's the first thing. I'm not going to sit there and give, and assign tasks, and nothing is beneath me. Literally, I will input business cards into a spreadsheet after a conference.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
totally.
nothing is beneath me. I've done everything in the companies I've started. Um, like I have a cleaning company. I went in early days. I went cleaning with my partner. Like we cleaning
Yeah.
bathrooms. So, like literally. So the way it worked is we always had a banker, kind of, not always, but for the last few years we had a banker. Well, first of all, we were venture backed. So we raised about
Mhm.
30 million bucks from like the top VC and software companies, Bessemer Venture Partners, who are, talk about slave drivers, by the way. But
Mhm.
raised some money, had a banker for a little while, always kind of like sniffing around. And we got this unsolicited offer for $100 million, which was 5 times recurring revenue at the time. And that was always my number. And I said, great. 45 days later, it was signed. Um, and I stayed on for a year and then left because, I kind of did my work. And um, so that was, yeah, it wasn't that hard of a decision, especially because, even with companies, you get this like 7 year itch. You're like, okay, we're still doing it. Like, what am I going to peddle software my whole life? Like, that's interesting. But I felt like we weren't really innovating as much as we used to. And that was a lot of because of the board, to be honest. But there was some tension on the board, which our mutual friend Bill Carrier was able to really help me through, like the relationships and the lateral management on my executive team and the the upper my board. And I refuse to call them my managers, but my managers, um, because I do have my fiduciary responsibilities to shareholders and the board, and I serve at their pleasure. Um, but they can all go, where.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, without their opportunity, I wouldn't be anywhere I am today. But
Yeah.
that being said, it doesn't mean that they made my life hell. I mean, I remember I had panic attacks, after calls from board members. I got on anti-anxiety medication because of them, because of me, but because of what
Yeah.
was inputs. So yeah, I mean, I sold the company, and I was like, great, what's next? Like literally, I was negotiating my next job the last month after in my in my a year after I had stayed on for a year. On month 11, I was negotiating my next job.
And how did you say what you tell us what you're into now because I know
Yeah, yeah.
it's
So
innovative, it's cool.
for the leaders listening, they probably know meetup.com. I was going to buy that company and become its CEO. That deal fell through partly because of COVID, which was a godsend because it ended up being selling for pennies on a dollar. And then for a minute, I was a CEO of a music festival because I was like, I love bringing people together. But then that was not really my jam. So pandemic hit real hard, and I just took this road trip, landed in Boise, Idaho after 4 months and 15,000 miles across the US, and spent some time kind of doing this the belonging work. A lot of people say they've done the work, but again, imposter syndrome alert. I've done so much to try to address this brokenness. And ironically, the last thing this the biochemical issues were only diagnosed after Hoffman, after psychological counseling services, after several psychedelic experiences, after years of therapy, after hypnosis, after group relations group, like all this stuff. And I was like, I got to try to figure this out. Um, yeah, it was insane. And and then I kind of realized, oh wait, I'm kind of like fucked up in the brain. Let me fix that first, and then get to all the other stuff. So I started this new company a year ago, and one of the things I loved at social tables is the magic that happens when a team comes together into a small room. I prefer facilitated meetings because executives can't facilitate and contribute at the same time. Um, but like so it's up to the group if they want to be facilitated or not. But I decided to move from software to hardware, and I'm building a new concept for retreat venues and offsite venues. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my new thing, and it's still in hospitality. And it's the goal is to help teams feel like they belong together.
So just let's jump into that word belonging, because you've had a life of not having it, of having it, of creating it. So just share, what is that word? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. So um, this is where I kind of like take a shot at the leading experts on the field, like Eckhart Tolle and Brene Brown and Elizabeth Gilbert, who will either tell you to sit and meditate and figure out and realize you belong to the universe, or to go eat pasta in Italy and like run naked in the forest. I don't think any of those things lead to belonging, or at least fully. Belonging is a statistically valid, independent psychological construct that um, is a fundamental human need, and it's inherently social. Now, what does it mean? It means that we are in an environment that where we feel seen, valued, and accepted. So we're getting those signals, while the environment also includes us and feel like we're contributing and adding value and so forth. So it's basically a symbiotic relationship between an individual and the group that they're in, or the person they're with, um, or the environment they're in. So that being said, I developed a research-based, uh, basically process for how each individual can find their personal sense of belonging. Because what I realized is that at social tables, I was trying to find personal belonging through professional belonging. And I got news for everybody listening. If you don't have personal belonging, you don't have professional belonging. And that's the thing about work-life balance. If we talk, some people talk about it, but it's not about work. Obviously, it's work-life integration. But you will never have balance if you don't have belonging at home first. And the way I think about it, step one is figuring out where you get your belonging right now and putting it into a fuel tank. This tank takes all kinds of different fuels. Might be my family, maybe my book club, maybe a TV show I love. And all these things give you a sense of belonging. And there's research that backs each of one of these paths. Figuring out how much is left over, figuring out what you can do to put in to fill up that tank based on your belonging persona. And there are four belonging personas, and then checking whether the things you already have in your tank actually give you a sense of belonging. Sometimes we're hanging out with the college friends, and we just can't stand them. Like, we talk shit about them with our spouse. Oh my god, they're so annoying. They gotta stop sending me memes. Um, so you know, um, the evaluation is a big piece of it, and then managing and editing that fuel tank to make sure it fits who you are. And the four belonging personas, very simple: a chimpanzee, or an eager belonger; a meerkat, or an anxious belonger; uh, uh, a snow leopard, or a reluctant belonger; or a wolf, an independent belonger. And just by the names of those animals, people can understand what they are. Chimps are hanging out, eating each other's lice, and fighting and playing and flirting in the trees. Um, Meerkats are doing the same thing underground because they're really scared, because they're anxious. Snow leopards are basically alone most of their life until they're mating, or they're raising a family. And then wolves can either be part of a pack or be alone, and that's why they're independent. So, based on that uh, persona examination, there are recommended paths to belong, and that's how you fill your tank, depending on who you are.
So that is so fascinating. I love it. And how, in the process of the research and writing the book, like how did you grow? Like, what were the benefits to you?
Well, I it gave me an understanding of why I've always been editing my tank. So I'll give you an example. I used to love, I still do, I love exclusive groups. I want to join this, I want to join that, I want to wear the badge, I want to feel cool, I want to connect X and Y and be like, you guys should hang out. Like, I want to be that guy. And then I realized, what am I? I don't like half these people. I don't. Why am I here? I don't feel like I belong here. So I just edited most of the groups I was in. Um, I I was, I didn't realize what role family plays in belonging. Having a partner, for many having children, how important that is to feel that sense of belonging. Those interpersonal relationships, even the best friend. Um, so I basically, this whole thing started because I was just reading for my own benefit to understand what's going on. And it was a combination of my own reading, because I was just like, I made all this money, but how can I be happy? So I started with Jonathan Haidt Happiness Hypothesis, and then I had this like book club, and we read The Wise Heart, and like so on and so forth. So anyway, that's the work I did, and that's how I landed on this framework. And I first did it for myself first and foremost.
Are you happy?
I am, and I would argue that it's not happiness. Happiness is a state, and it can come and go. Or sorry, happiness is a feeling that can come and go. Joy is like a state that you can hold on to even if you're unhappy. And I am a pretty joyful person. Um, Obviously, there are struggles and there are shitty days, especially in my disease and addiction. But I would say that generally I am, and I love to bring that energy to other people.
What you mentioned your 4 months, 4 months of a dad. So what are you learning being a dad?
But
Do you
I
feel like
learned
you're in
that
the
I love
process or
it.
not?
I mean, being a dad especially like, second kind of quarter of their life, it's when you start getting feedback and you start getting the smiles and the giggles. And, there's like nothing. I mean, everybody says this, there's like nothing that gives you more joy than that. And, it's interesting. Everybody obviously listening knows Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. Ironically, by the way, not ironically, but not so ironically, Maslow had belonging in the middle of the pyramid in the when he developed this in the 40s. Um, but Maslow, when he came up with his pyramid, he basically asked his like white male buddies. That's how he came up with the pyramid. He wasn't like, let me make a study, control an experiment group. It wasn't like that. Like, let me do a meta analysis. There wasn't none of that. So then a group led by Professor Kenrick out of the University of Arizona came up with a new Maslow hierarchy. And instead of belonging, they called it affiliation. It's similar. But at the top of the pyramid, they didn't include self actualization. Um, they put parenting. And below parenting, they put mate retention. And below mate retention, they put mate acquisition. Um, so, yeah, I would argue that parenting does give you, especially for men, parenting makes you feel like you belong for the first time.
That's amazing. Okay, we'll have to do a quick segue because I find you so articulate, even though you've come through all these potentially very hard to talk about
Thank you.
things, Don. But this is to say it skillfully. So, is there a tough conversation you have or you had that you could share with listeners?
Like
Something
every
that's
minute of
challenging.
every day. I recently learned the difference between being direct and being a straight shooter. Um, Being direct is not considering how it lands on the other person, while being a straight shooter um, is saying something kindly. And people say differently, like speaking in kindness, different communication modes, whatever. Or radical candor, I think, was one of the books. Like, um, and that just became an excuse for being an asshole, which I've used many times. Um, okay. This is again. I think the most important thing is, well, it depends. There's professional, personal relationships. I'll start with personal. and I'll say why there's a difference. With personal, obviously, it's the basics, which is start with a feeling and move to a need. And so, for example, my wife and I had a disagreement this past weekend. I sat on it, I meditated on it, and I realized it created a feeling of lack of safety. So I said, Jen, I felt unsafe when this happened. And some people love to pile on the feelings. I felt unsafe. I felt dismissed. One feeling. So just one feeling. Because otherwise they get lost. So one feeling, I felt unsafe when this happened, um, because X Y Z. And my need is this. So I said I felt unsafe because you raised your voice or because you made a threat. And I really need a genuine apology. Um, and that's my personal piece of advice. My professional piece of advice in terms of communication is to not bring your traumas to work. And this is much harder to do, much easier said than done. We all carry our traumas. But look, here's the deal. Just because you were neglected as a child doesn't mean that I, as your colleague or employer, have to deal with the trauma you just caused you. So then the question becomes of how do we respect and honor people's traumas and their experiences while at the same time, you know, giving feedback or giving praise or whatever. So or giving direction. Um, and I won't say I mastered it, but I will say that when it comes to professional, it's always about going back to the point. So if, well, I've had a lot of employees cry, for example, because we had a very young workforce. Average age was 27. So,
Right.
I'm really, and this was like, I had like one employee was like, uh, I can't come to work because the AC in my house is out and my dog is hot. So, and she wanted, a personal day. So it's like, okay, well, I'm so sorry this is happening to your dog. We have this deadline. So, maybe you can come in for half day, whatever, but always going back to the point as opposed to trying to like, oh my God, I didn't mean it that way. The best piece of advice I heard about it is like, like, um, um, another piece of advice is like, never leave a meeting with to-dos. So the other people have the to-dos.
We'll leave it at that. Okay, my friend, we're gonna go over a wrap. Too fun. Let's do some fun things. Hobbies.
Hobbies. Yeah, so this is funny. Um, My wife says that my identity is I'm a night showerer, a runner, and a rugby fan. And all these things are true because I just developed these things in less than a year. So I do enjoy running, even though I started a year and a half ago.
Wow.
On my honeymoon. Um, I do uh, I do love watching rugby, even though I'm not sporty at all. And I also love saltwater aquariums. I have about 400 gallons of saltwater aquariums between two tanks in my home, and I have incredible fish and incredible coral, and I really enjoy the beauty I create in that space. So
Love that. I
that's
love
those are
that.
some of my apps, and I like video games too.
Okay. I wanted to be Jacques Cousteau and be a marine biologist, but that's
Uh,
another story. Okay,
Hey,
so I define introvert as deriving energy from within, and extrovert is really, driving energy externally. Would you say you're more introvert or extrovert?
yeah, your listeners can take a guess.
The obvious.
I will say
Um,
though, I realize that while I do get energy from other people, they have to be like-minded because otherwise they're like, have you ever seen What We Do in the Shadows? They're like an energy vampire. I used to like, I used to like go to like lunches or meetings and like, and people were not like extroverted. And I realized I thought it was my fault. I was like, oh my God, let me break the silence. But it's not, let me manage to them, but it's not my fault. Um, but I do realize that after time spent with other people, I do need time for myself to recharge.
yeah, no, that's for sure. That's me.
But I'm
Okay.
an ENTJ for the record.
Shocking. So, um, assuming you are where you are now, is there one do over you might share with us?
uh, mm, I would. I mean, the answer is no because everything I've had in my life, even if it was terrible, was a learning and got me to where I am today. Um, I mean, there's silly things with friends or my wife where I wish I would act in a different way, but at the end of the day, not really. and part of the 12-step program is to make amends for the hurt that you've caused. So I'm very aware of the hurt I've caused, and I hope the people I reach out to forgive me.
Yeah. Thank you. Your proudest accomplishment, whether that's personal or professional.
Getting married to my wife Chen. You know, I I'm really um, grateful that she's given me the space to grow because I've put her through it. And it says more about her than it says about me. Um, but getting married and really experiencing that joy with all the heartache that I caused early on um, has really been fulfilling for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next life after this next company, what's the profession that you would do?
Um, I love animals. Like I love animals more than humans. Like truly. Um, I really, I really would love to, um, you know, be like I mean, still your thought, a marine biologist, or kind of like I love scuba diving. I'm a free diver. Like anything related to like nature, but specifically the water. Just the breadth and of it is just amazing. The world is mostly covered by it. Like, what's going on down there? Uh, hello, like, don't go up there. Why are we going up there? We should go down there. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You know how much?
Totally.
I think how many cures are underwater that we don't know
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Like, anyway, so that's about
Yes.
be my answer. I love that.
Excellent. Do you have any nicknames, Don, that you
I'm
can
not gonna
share?
share. Come on, I'm not gonna share them.
Okay. Favorite food or cuisine?
By the way, I don't have nicknames. Favorite. I'm a New York pizza kind of guy. But honestly, food for me is just like an input. Yeah. So I don't give a shit what I'm eating.
It's hilarious. Okay, so you've shared a lot. I know there's much more too, but of everything you kind of heard yourself saying, what would your top takeaway be?
Oh, by the way, food will probably be Diet Coke. Um, uh,
It's not a
I
food.
know, I know. Um, Sorry, what was the question? I was thinking about Diet Coke.
Your own top takeaway. If you're listening to yourself, what are your top takeaway?
I think be more confident and not cite everything.
Nice, really nice. And then lastly,
Like I'm so fucking self-aware that I'm like talking.
you,
Like,
you are right up there with
yeah.
the like a thousandth percentile of self-aware, my friend, for sure, for sure. Okay, share with us, what was it like for you to share your journey with us today?
So they say that oversharing is an ADHD like I don't know, it's like symptom, and I'm not medicated for that yet. So I mean, I don't know what will happen once I am, but look, I don't have a problem saying that things I say, especially talking about sex addiction. I mean, who the fuck talks about that? Like I can name like a few people on one hand that talk about it publicly, and I think really men are at a crisis in our country. Um, they are feeling left behind, and we can talk about the rights of everybody, but white men have rights too, and we just need to consider it. When we talk about empathy, we got to think about empathy for everybody and everybody's
Yeah.
challenges. So I really want to help uh, people face addiction, specifically when it comes to pornography and sex. Um, Atlantic just had a piece about how there's a world where people will prefer pornography than actually meeting people. So I really want to help people find their sense of belonging, and specifically men.
Well, I have to thank you for putting yourself out there, Don, and for being in service. And you truly, I can see it, I can feel it, and that gives you that sense of purpose. And if there's any little way that I might be helpful to you, my friend, I would be here for you. And I really appreciate how you are part of the solution, helping us all be safe, seen, and heard, and our true and our very best selves.
Thank
You
you.
take good care.
Thank you. Thanks, Molly.
I'll come to Boise and visit.
Yeah, please.
I will. I will. Okay, folks, as you have heard, Don has found his voice and he's leading to his full potential. I want to help you do the same. And I've launched the Say It Skillfully 101 program to help you speak up, make your words matter. You can check it out at sayitskillfully.com. And then I'm thrilled, the book that I'm co-authoring with the one and only Marshall Goldsmith is available for pre-order. And Marshall and I want to help as many people as possible. And the best way to do that is if we could be a bestseller. So I'm imploring you to help pre-order the book. It's we're having a 411, like information 411, $4.11 will help us get onto the books there. So I appreciate you helping us be part of the solution in fostering honest conversations and skillful communication and really strong relationships. And I'll wrap with one final thought from St. Augustine. The truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. And then my appreciation and awe to the skillful Eric Patton, who makes this whole show possible. He's the driving force for sayitskillfully.com and all of our resources and programs. And that is a wrap, folks. I want to thank you for joining us. Please be part of the solution. Kindly share the show. Amplify Don's voice. Reflect on your own top takeaways and know that I'm cheering for you to be who you are and skillfully say what needs to be said so that you and those around you have the shared reality that makes work and life much, much better.